Hey y'all, welcome to episode 2 of How to Build a Rockery with JohnnyK. Today we're going to focus on supplies. I know a lot of people want to start digging, but this is a major portion after design is supplies. If you see me swatting around, there's a bunch of gnats out this year, and I don't have any bug spray on or anything like that, so that's the reason, but let's get started with this. Supplies are huge in building a rockery. If you want essentially a weedless rockery and a rockery that retains water, so you don't got to water it, xeriscape it. I mean, half of that is the plants, and the other half is going to be how you design your garden and the materials you use to retain water. So I'm going to show you what I do here. Number one, probably after you get your hardscape in place, which I'll show you how to do once we start digging, is landscape fabric. All right, I know a lot of people hate landscape fabric because you have to, if you're digging up a property with it on, it can be cumbersome to get it all up, and then a lot of swear words and that kind of stuff. But I really like landscape fabric. So I'll show you what I bought yesterday. I got this at Menards. This is a 3-foot by 50-foot roll. This is Yardworks Professional Underlayment Landscape Fabric. For the other side, I think I did use the little cheaper one with a 10-year warranty. All right, let's be honest, we're not going to dig this up in 10 years and return it to Menards anyway, but that warranty will tell you how good quality that fabric is. So I upped it up a little bit this year and got a 25-year fabric. So it should technically last longer, and it's got a nice tight weave to it. I like all black. This one's got little gray specks in it, which I don't prefer, because if your mulch kind of pulls away, then you can kind of see, it will make it more obvious that there's fabric underneath. If it's pure black, it's just going to look like the soil. But this looks like a pretty good option. It's a little more expensive, not as expensive as like the really woven hardscape fabric. I got a price list here, and let's see how much this costs. So this cost $25 for a 3-foot by 50-foot roll, and I think on the 30 by 30-foot parcel I did, the rockery that I've been showing you guys, I think I used about 2 rolls. So I think I used about 100 feet. I really didn't document it, so this time around I guess we'll see how much we actually use. But landscape fabric is huge. If you're doing all the work to do a rockery right, or the way at least I did it, I really recommend getting the good landscape fabric, because you don't want all that work to go to waste. Definitely don't get the ones that are for light use. They say maybe, I think they say maybe five years on them, but they say for light gardens and that kind of stuff, and those tear really easily and they're very thin, so a lot of seedlings come through on those, a lot of weeds, which you really don't want. So the other thing with landscape fabric is you're going to need some kind of pins. So this is from that same company, it looks like, Yardworks. It's a 4-inch Pro. All it is a metal, let me take one of these out. It's a metal stake to stake down your fabric. So it's just it's like a big staple essentially that you're going to pound in with a hammer to keep this landscape fabric down. This came in a pack of a 50, and it looks like, let's see how much it was here. Looks like it was $5, $4.99, so that's not too bad for 50 of them. And you'll definitely want quite a few of them, because you really want to staple that landscape fabric down once your hardscape's done. That will really keep it from coming up and keep weeds from shooting out underneath it. I have that happen with my Tiger Eye sumacs. They have really aggressive runners, and you'll see the only place where the runners pop up is where I've cut the landscape fabric, or if it overlays and it's not very tight, or there's not much overlay on that landscape fabric. So landscape fabric is number one thing. So I got my young birds out flying, so if you see any birds overhead, training those racing pigeons. But next we're going to look at what's going to go on top of the landscape fabric, and that is mulch. It probably doesn't look like my rockery has mulch on it, and that's because I don't want it to look like it's got mulch on it. But landscape fabric by itself will not prevent weeds. Okay? I think that's the huge misconception, and I think that's why people hate it, is because by itself it's porous, right? So things like clover or oxalis or really any weeds that have really tiny seeds, they'll still grow there, you know. So what you got to do is layer mulch on top of it. So to make it look natural, if you do like a cedar mulch or redwood mulch, it's not going to really look natural, right? Because there's just not a bunch of shredded wood on a mountainside. So I get the black mulch, and normally I'm a very organic gardener, so I don't like dyed things, but this is one place where I will use dyed mulch, just because if you don't use it, it's going to completely change the feel and look of your rockery. So what I got here is it's a black mulch. It's dyed black. You can see it. It just looks like a bag of dirt. And I think those came in at, let's see here. Those came in at $3.33 a bag. Not too bad if it's not big rockery. But mine has been out there for about 4 years, and the mulch is still intact, so it should be good for a while. And that's the two main components of the rockery where you're going to want to pay attention to, besides the boulders and rocks. So landscape fabric and mulch. And when you do mulch, you want as deep layer as possible if you don't want to weed. All right, like at least 2 inches, 4 inches preferable if you don't want to weed at all. But that's going to really help cut down on weeds. It's really going to cut down on weeds being able to sprout, take a hold, and then you got that second barrier, that landscape fabric underneath, which in itself, those pores let the moisture through. That's the nice thing about landscape fabric, is water can still pass through, and then mulch also helps retain moisture. So, I mean, I live in Minnesota, but we've been in a drought, right? So even here, the desert plants still like a little bit of water when you're in a drought. You know, it gets hot here, humid here, and they'll send out their roots to where the mulch is to pick up that water. So two huge things, mulch and landscape fabric. All right, next thing we're going to talk about, besides the landscape fabric and the mulch, is actually what you're going to plant your plants in. Because it's impossible to amend all your soil. Well, it's not impossible, it just requires a lot of money, a lot of time, which I don't have. But so I'm going to amend the soil where I'm going to plant these plants. And like I said in episode 1, succulents like fast drainage because they're meant to store water in their leaves. And you can see here, I propagated some of these succulents in a mix. This is a sempervivum of some sort. This is a Puntia fragilis, another one of our natives. This is an Puntia fragilis lake of the woods. It's a tiny little guy found on the limestone. And this is another Puntia. I think it was, forget the cultivar on this one. I think this one's Humafusa. So anyway, I'm using this mix to both propagate plants and to amend the soil where I'm going to be planting them in the garden. So essentially you want to dig a hole and a little above the other dirt so you're not pooling too much. And I'll show you all this as well in future videos when we actually get to planting. But you're going to want to start preparing this stuff beforehand. That way you can go to the nursery, buy some plants, and start propagating them so you have more to plant if you got a big area. Otherwise it's going to be a lot of money to fill that area without propagating. So first, potting soil. I mean, it's kind of obvious that you'll need some kind of soil. So I just got, I think, a Schultz potting soil here, which I think was like $11 a bag. If I was doing vegetables or eating from this, I'd make sure it's organic. I'm not sure that this one is organic, or at least certified organic. But I try and do the organic if I'm eating from it, especially. But I lifted up the bag of organic potting soil at Menards, and it was too heavy. You don't really want heavy soil when you're dealing when you want fast drainage. Usually fast draining soil is pretty light. So then I picked up this Schultz one. It was a little lighter, but I'm still going to amend it to make it lighter, which is I will amend it with well, actually this is the first time I bought vermiculite. So this is a vermiculite. It's pretty expensive, so usually I buy perlite instead. But I wanted to give this a try. And the difference between perlite and vermiculite is that the vermiculite is going to hold about 16 times its weight in water, and the perlite is going to hold about 4 times its weight in water. So while helping soil aeration. So they're very good things to have around. Since this holds more water, you might want to think about that when you're amending your soil on how much to put in there. But besides these two, usually I do a mix of potting soil, because usually it's much faster draining than topsoil. A mixture of perlite or vermiculite, depending on where that plant is from, and if it likes a basic pH, I'll add in some lime or something like that. And then I usually do pool filter sand. I don't got a bag with me right now, but pool filter sand is really great for garden use. I like it a lot better than a lot of the other sands you find at Menards or wherever you're looking, because a lot of those compact really well, and the pool filter sand is meant to be in a pool filter, so it's kind of a little larger and doesn't compact as easy. And then I'll throw in some pea gravel if I have it, or something like that as well. So that's really going to be the basis of my mix. If I need something acidic, which is kind of rare, my Sarracenias in the bog needed acidic, so I'll add in peat moss. And I know it's not great that a lot of times it's not sustainably harvested, but a bag of peat moss goes a long ways for me. I've had the same bag for 4 years, and I've used like a quarter of it, and I'll just keep using it and amending the soil when I have more acid-loving plants. I've got a little, most of my acid lovers are in my bogs, the ferns and stuff like that. But research where your plants are from and see what type of soil they'll like. So that's it for that potting mix, and then I'll take that mix it in a bucket, and then I'll dig that hole and fill it with this faster draining mix, and then I'll put the plants into it. So essentially cut a hole in the landscape fabric, dig some of the whatever type of soil you have, dig that out, and I'll actually mix a little bit in with that mixture as well, just so they kind of get acclimated to that as well, and then fill it back up, and then kind of plant your plants a little higher, because that's going to sink down. So that's what we use these for, propagation and planting in the rockery. So buy some of this stuff. This was about $17 a bag. I don't know if I said that. That's pretty expensive, but it holds more water, which might be good for like crevices and stuff. But let's also talk about how boulders retain water and rocks retain water. If you've ever lifted up a boulder or even a smaller size rock anywhere, you usually see some insects underneath it, some worms, some pill bugs. So what happens is the moisture in the ground is trying to evaporate, and that's acting like a mulch almost, or it's just acting as a barrier to prevent it from evaporating. So that's why plants in crevices do really well a lot of the time, even when it's dry out, because they're sending these huge tap roots down underneath to catch that water. And then, like I said before, we're going to do the same thing with the mulch in the less rocky areas of your rockery. So those are some basics of the supplies you need. Let's check out what tools you'll need. It's not very many, but we should still check it out because there's some tools I like to use. All right, tools. What kind of tools do you need to build a rockery? I mean, this first one's kind of obvious in some ways, but maybe not the ways you thought. So it's a spade, right? You're going to need a spade to dig. You can do it with a hand trowel, but that's going to take forever. The part that you might not think about when you're buying a spade is if you're converting like a grass lawn like I did to a rockery, you're either going to need like I think they call them sod lifters, or I just use this spade that's very shallow. It's almost flat. So I really like this spade because, and I'll show you this technique when we get started, but I take the top soil or the top layer of grass off, leaving the soil underneath, and I do it with this spade, and then I put all that in a pile upside down so that grass kind of dies away, and that's why I use this style spade. I rarely use the sharp spades in my rockery builds because once I need to dig a hole, I'm going to be doing mainly that with a hand spade, which brings me to my favorite type of hand spade. This looks like a knife, but it's actually a Japanese gardening tool called a hori-hori. Okay. So it's like a trowel, and you can see it's got a measuring, so you can see how far down you are. It's got a serrated edge and a sharp edge, which is really going to help when you're dealing with landscape fabric, as well as a rope cutter, so you can pull the rope through that. This is a really nice hori-hori. This is actually my brand. I actually sell this on my website, oldsoulyoungspirit.com, but they're getting more prevalent here. So if you're looking to check out my website, but you're really starting to find these more. You really want a good heavy one with a metal end on there, nice serrations, and this allows you to dig, cut the roots, cut the landscape fabric. Really, it's a very versatile tool, one of my favorites to use when you're building a rockery. And you know, my rockery's in the front yard, so if I ever need it for protection, it's there. And then for a hand scoop, it's it's very nice to have one that is deeper and can hold more soil. So when you're digging out your hole with the hori-hori, you can use this one to scoop it out, and then replace it with this mixture. So those are the main tools I use for planting. But for moving the boulders, I'm going to be using a hand dolly, which I got right here. I got a pretty heavy-duty one. It's actually meant for beer kegs. And a big thing with hand dollies, like I said, I use 30,000 pounds of boulders in the rockery I have right now. I move those all by hand. And if you got one of those little dinky dollies, I'm not sure it would have been able to take that. So you'll want one with rubber tires. This one's pretty heavy, but I'll give you a show there. It's got rubber tires on it. So you really want one with rubber tires, not those lawnmower wheels, those plastic ones. I mean, those are going to break right away. Um, but like I said, if you're not capable, physically capable of moving something 300 to 400 pounds, maybe it's a good uh, to hire some help. Hire maybe some neighborhood kids, college kids, or maybe a professional landscaper to place the rocks where you want them. But I did it with this, and I plan to do it with this in our build here, so y'all at home can build it the same way. So those are the majority of the tools I've used to build the other rockery. All right, let's talk about why you need more than just big boulders. Going to do a little demonstration here on what you're going to want to do and why you need multiple size boulders. You're going to need smaller rock. I use river rock, river pebble, and pea gravel. I don't have all of those on me at this time, so I just want to do a little demonstration. But say you're planting in your rock, and say this is a way larger boulder than it is, right? We're going to plant it there. All right, make it secure. And then if you guys are viewing the garden from the front, you're going to want some shorter plants up front here. And let's see, let's get it to a natural looking spot like that. Maybe like that little overhang. So this is a great spot to plant shorter things. And this is a great spot back here to have something coming over the top. So I would probably put the fragilis right here over the top. And then we're going to do something a little smaller, kind of coming out the side there. And then maybe something like either of these would really work here. I'd probably do the sempervivums up front around it. And then now you're going to have a really nice looking scape there. But then you'll just have a rock in the middle of nothing. I mean, I have some grit here, which is another great thing besides pea gravel to amend the soil. But this is red chicken grit or cherry grit. So it's great to amend the soil, but maybe you don't want a big layer of it because it's one color and that looks unnatural again. But then you're going to take, so this is a river rock, not very big, but you're going to scatter those around the front, because there's not just going to be one rock in the middle of nowhere. There's going to be a lot of smaller broken fragments of that rock. Okay, so you put that in the front, and then these smaller ones, they're pretty small. Those are river pebble. You're going to want to sprinkle those into around the rock, not in a nice uniform edge, kind of all sprinkled together. And then I'm not sure if I have any pea gravel in here. Oh yeah, here's some pea gravel. So pea gravel is really tiny. I don't know if you can see that. Super tiny. And then next you want to sprinkle that on top. And that's why you're going to want to, it's just like anything else, looks good in layers. An English garden, even though it's very structured, is still very layered. Tall things in backs or in colors. So you want to layer your hardscape in the same way, and that's why for supplies you want to get multiple size boulders, multiple size rocks, pebbles, and then I even sprinkle some sand around here and there to just make it look really natural. So that's what I would do. But hey, let's go check out the boulders, because first time I ordered boulders, I was completely wrong with how many I ordered. I really didn't know what I was doing. There was really no good tutorials on how to build a rockery here in the U.S., especially Minnesota, where it gets -40. Most of the tutorials were actually from Europe or some other countries, which is great, but a completely different environment from what I'm working with, and completely different types of rocks. So hey, let's go check out some boulders. Alright, I used around 18 tons of boulders for this rockery. That's a little more than 30,000 pounds. And that doesn't include the river rock or the river pebbles. And this rockery is 30 foot by 30 foot approximately big. So that's quite a lot of work, quite a lot of boulders to move. So if you're not capable of that, you might want to hire that out. I did move these all with a dolly, which I will be showing you how I did that on some of the next episodes when I actually start the build. But I just wanted to go over how big these boulders actually are. When I started, it was very difficult to get an idea of how many boulders to order. I first ordered, I think, 3 tons of boulders, thinking 1-ton pickup beds full of boulders would be a lot of boulders, but that didn't even finish my stream. So really it does take quite a bit of boulders, and it also depends on the type of boulders, of course, as you know, granite is really heavy. So if you're doing the limestone or something else, it's probably a little lighter, and you'll probably get more boulders by the weight, by the ton, by the pound. So this stream alone probably took a third of it. It goes all the way back. Oh, you can see a hose there. I was just filling it this morning. So back where that hose is, the stream goes all the way back there. Let me take a step up so maybe you can see it better. So that's about 25 feet, 28 feet long stream, and that probably took up a third of the boulders by itself. So let's measure some boulders here and see how big they are, and that way you know what to order. And of course, I did use a lot of river rock and river pebble too, which is not included in that weight. So that's also something to think about. Alright, this is a little bench I made. It's very sturdy. Has been up for about 4 years now, and everything's settled. And that's 24 inches and got another 3 inches there. So this is a 27-inch boulder, but it's halved. And it's still pretty big. But something like that is probably going to weigh 400 pounds as granite. So moving it by yourself is not easy. Definitely it's hard to lift. Maybe 350, 400 pounds. So think about that kind of thing. So a 27-inch boulder, if this was a fully round boulder, would be almost impossible lift by myself. You'd need equipment or more people. So that's a big guy right there, and I believe this might have been similar size here. A lot of kids and dogs come in to look in the pond from this boulder, so it's kind of a little, almost like a stepping boulder I set there. Alright, this guy is about probably 14 inches across. It goes kind of deep. It's a little patch of sempervivums. So that one is pretty easy to move by yourself if you're capable. So Fedora Landscape Supply sells boulders in certain groupings, and I think it was a 12 to 18 inch group where you're going to get this size boulder. That size is probably in it too. All the ones around this little sempervivum patch are probably in it. So alright, this is going to be a smaller subset boulder. Looks to be about 10 inches. Anyone can really lift this size boulder. You can see this one here is probably about 6 inches. So that's another size that they sell, is that smaller size. So to make a natural look, you're going to want to mix with those all, as well as mixing in river pebble and river rock. All right, sorry for the people who wanted me to start digging this episode. That will probably come next episode where we actually get our hands much dirtier. But that concludes episode 2, all about the supplies. So if you have any questions about supplies, please ask. Like I said, I sell those Hori Horis, and they're one of my favorites, but you'll need a good spade, some 5-gallon buckets, and some topsoil, some vermiculite or perlite, some sand, really amend that soil, and get things started off right. And one of the biggest things, like I said before, is that landscape fabric and mulching it right so you don't have weeds, because who wants to spend their weekend weeding? I don't. Maybe some people do. I mean, it is kind of relaxing. I just don't got time for it. So to do that, you'll need the right supplies. So please check out those supplies. Ask any questions if you got it. Please subscribe and comment on the videos and like them if you want to see more of it. And I really appreciate you tuning in. And you guys have a wonderful weekend, or weekday if it's the weekday when you're watching this. All right, take it easy. Peace.